Hello, hello, hello. Y'all sound too quiet.
Hello.
Thank you. Y'all know I'm from the Boogie Down Bronx. How are y'all today? What's going on? All right, let me get my clicker. Everything satisfied. So you guys feeling good today?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna jump into something really interesting. Gonna be a little bit of call and response, so I'm happy to be here and talk about something really, really interesting. So again, I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Burrell Communications Group. And today we want to talk about sort of a new way to plan, thinking about strategy at the speed of life. You're probably like, what is she talking about? What does that mean? So I started thinking about this concept a while back. And listen, if things could always go as planned, would that not be amazing, right? It would be awesome, but that ain't always what happens. And I realized that there's this sort of power in protocol and preparation, right? And so in your personal life, if you're prepared for something, you usually can handle it a little bit better, right? But also what I realized is that some of the best work that I've done as a strategist is when I had a moment to be prepared, understanding the power of protocol. So I started thinking like really deeply about what is the situation to me where there was so much power in protocol and preparation. And I kept coming back to this one thing that happened. Again, I just mentioned I'm a New Yorker from the Boogie Down. But there was something that happened in the city, and I remember thinking the reason why this worked out the way it did is because of protocol and preparation. And it's taught me a lot about strategy. So I want you guys to watch a video about this situation, and then we're gonna talk about it. I know I'm gonna lose 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes, but stay with me because it's really, really important to watch this, and then we'll talk about what it means for strategy.
Birds. Whoa. Oh, God. We got one rolling back. We got both of them rolling back. Ignition start. I'm starting to hear you.
Just double check your seatbelts, please.
Seatbelts, can I make sure you relax?
Make sure your seatbelts are fastened.
What do you think that was? I think it was a bird strike. And we're going back to LaGuardia again.
Get out the QRH. Plus on both engines. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Cactus 1549. Hit birds.
Maintain 15,000 Delta 331.
We've lost thrust on both engines. We are turning back towards LaGuardia.
Okay, you need to return to LaGuardia. Turn left heading 220.
220.
Which engine did you lose?
Both engines.
Soup?
Yep.
I have an emergency.
What's the report?
Both engines.
What?
Both engines gone, no thrust. Cactus 1549, if we can get it for you, do you want to try to land runway 13?
We're unable. We may end up in the Hudson.
I got an A320 diving for the river. Al, stack all the inbounds to LaGuardia.
Put a hold on the tower, please. Come on, guys, standpoint.
What about this? Is the captain. Brace for impact.
What? Brace! Brace! Heads down! Stay down! Brace! 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 Heads down! Stay down!
Cactus 1549, turn right 280. You can land runway 12 to Burrell.
We can't make it. We're gonna end up in the Hudson.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus?
We do, darling.
All right. I know that was 2 minutes. Give it up for Captain Sully. This happened for real. In real life, I was in Edgewater, New Jersey. You can only imagine as a New Yorker what it felt like to see another plane, right, so low. But we'll go through, I wanted you to watch that, and I know it was a little bit long to be on stage, but y'all rock with me on that, and I appreciate it. I want you to raise your hand if you think that there was a pre-written plan and protocol for if there is a bird strike and you lose 2 engines. Do you think the FAA had a protocol for that they followed? Right? I don't know, you just saw them do it, right? Okay, they do. And that's what he did. And so we're gonna talk about that. But do you all have a strategic response plan for our industry's version of bird strikes? It could be a couple of things. I didn't see anybody raise your hand. Nobody, huh? Thank God when we fly in planes, they have thought about that. So maybe you do have some plans, right? Maybe some of the things that have happened before, so something like an E. coli outbreak. If you work with a QSR brand, they've got sort of a protocol of what you do if that happens. Somebody's misbehaving, sometimes there's a succession plan for that, right? If something like that happens. So maybe there's a couple of ways to have a sort of emergency response strategy, but what about when things like this happen? Because this is our version of a bird strike, where we are right now. So I want to just talk a little bit through this. So this is a lot because it's very chaotic right now, right? And so Waymo, self-driving cars, we worked with them a bit, and everything was great. And then on Saturday, those cars were on fire. And their customers felt like they were agents of state surveillance, right? Target, we all know that story as well. Not understanding their main consumer feeling betrayed, seeing their in-store shoppers plummet. A customer base that's really unhappy, no matter how you feel about it, about a logo rebrand. And then you have, anybody know what Jet2 Holiday is? Ever heard that? Jet2 Holiday, I can't do it. But a fun trend, not even with your consumer base, that was a good time. And then all of a sudden it's used in a really negative, derogative way. Now you're the main character. You thought you were talking about jeans, it ends up hurting an entire community. These are our bird strikes, but they're not all bad, because sometimes you just stick to your values and you have a new accelerated audience of growth like Costco. But again, it's unexpected. It's things that we have to start thinking about planning for. And so nobody raised their hand, so I'm not alone in my hypothesis of wondering, why are we as strategists, we solve problems. This is what we do. It's why I love doing this. Why are we still operating so flat-footed, right, in this world full of bird strikes? And so to me, what I wanted to talk about today was this idea of thinking about strategy in a new way, thinking about how we implement strategy in a new way. As we mentioned before, there's PR and there's crisis comms, there's a couple of things that we do now. But what we've been talking about, and again at Burrell, we think and we believe our ethos is that we're powered by the people, and we see what is happening in this world, and it's moving at a mile a minute. And so we're thinking about holistic, cultural, strategic response. How do you actually prepare for the world that we're in today as strategy leaders? So I made you watch that video. It was intense, right? But I want to go through what happened on Flight 1549, which again, that was the Tom Hanks version, which has a little bit of movie magic to it. But we're going to go through what worked for them and then how we can actually apply that to how we do what we do as strategists as well. So the first thing to think about is, listen, things happen, man. The doggone birds hit the plane. Things happen. And so for the airline industry, we're thinking about a video that we just watched. A lot of smart people took the time to say, if you are in the air, you lose one engine. You saw the team check first. How many did you lose? Different plans. We lost both engines, right? So somebody had to take the time to say, this is something that could happen. We need to make sure that we're prepared for it. So what is our response in our industry for circumstances that might happen? I just named several different types of ways of things that have happened, our bird strike, right? Now, you can't predict the future. I don't have a crystal ball, but again, we're strategists, we solve problems. You can't start theming out a couple of things, right? So it's important to recognize themes for potential issues and then define a plan and a strategy. Secondly, One band, one sound, made by many instruments. This is super important. And if you're weird like me and you want to go to YouTube, you can actually hear the real air traffic control call between Captain Sully and the air traffic controller. Everybody was terrified, but they sound exactly like they did in this movie reenactment, because everybody knew what they were supposed to do. They were versed on the plan and the response protocol. They knew their role and they executed it perfectly, even down to the stewardesses as well, who you'll see say, we know what's gonna happen. Can you imagine hearing brace for impact? Like, your heart probably stops. But they went exactly into doing what they needed to do, and that saved all the passengers' lives with minimal injuries. So it's important to understand for us in what we do as strategists in brands, in marketing, is that we have to plan strategically so that several teams can actually work productively cross-functionally. You never know who you may need, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But they have to work, they have to be versed on the plan and protocol, and then work together to be in response to different circumstances that might arise. And now, the last one's also really important. You must know thyself. So an important factor to understand when I say know thyself is that the protocols and how you use them, even though they had their plan, they knew and been trained on what to do, you have to have a little bit of agility in that, right? So when you're using that agility, you have to call on your core foundational value. What is your mission? What are you actually here to do? This is directly from the FAA's website, and their mission is safety. Everything, every plan they write, every choice they make, every protocol is based on safety. Right? So you can imagine that they may have done some different things if their mission was protect company property, right? Maybe it would have done some things different, but it's safety. And so the values actually guide all of the parties to execute with agility. And so again, the crew all knew that that was the goal. That was what was guiding the protocol's way today. So strategists, they have to be able to respond to culture in this sort of agile way, but it needs to be based on the values and the core foundation of values of the brand, of the agency that have already been defined. So I'll go back through this really quickly. Couple things, remember this, things happen, man. What could happen? What has happened? Can we bucket that in themes, by category, by time? And we've seen a lot happen in the last 5 years specifically, right? How do we start to understand it? How do we recognize themes for potential issues? And again, I mentioned Costco because they're not all bad. Sometimes there are opportunities to take advantage of something really interesting and growth and explosion there. Again, one band, one sound, several instruments, right? Everybody has to be versed on the plan or else it's not going to work as well. We can't have a weak link. So we need to make sure that we're thinking cross-functionally and how it comes to life. And then know thyself. Again, think about your values. So again, passenger safety, crew safety, that was what guided the plan that was written for Captain Sully and any other pilot who's the victim of a bird strike. What is the mission and values of the brands that we are guiding and leading every day? What is the mission and values? If you're at an agency, how do we actually create what we do? So y'all thought I was done. Nope, I got time left. Because I wanted to also tell you that this is not just me preaching and hypothesizing. This is something I've actually had a chance to do. And so I've been at Burrell, so excited, a little less than a year. But around 6 years ago, I had an opportunity to actually build a plan like this and practice it in probably one of the most chaotic places ever, a platform formerly known as Twitter. I'm not gonna call it the new name. So I was actually hired there to come in and create a team and do something that would help us build this type of cultural response. Twitter moved like that, it moved fast. We had to have a way to do that. How do we respond to culture? Because this is literally the ethos of the service, right? So we needed to build a program that allowed us to do a couple of things. Have this consistent relationship with different communities. That's the Twitter Voices program. We went around the world meeting with our communities that drove the platform, drove conversation on the platform, so that we could understand what kind of things happened to them. What were they experiencing on our platform? What could we start to be prepared for? What could we accelerate if it was something great, right? And then we also built this sort of always on and an escalation response plan for how we worked cross-functionally across a couple of different departments: brand strategy, media, product, policy, council, all of that. And I'll talk a little bit about it in a second. And then nothing happened and everything was great. No, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. Got there in 2018, we built, we learned, we tested, and here comes 2020. And what was so interesting is that there was a lot of chaos in 2020. I know we all remember it. But there was this massive social uprising. It started to take place, not just within the world, but these important perspectives and conversations from the community that was most affected by the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020 after the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. That conversation was actually happening directly on Twitter. And so because for 2 years, we launched a plan where we talked to the communities. We understood what mattered to them, where they wanted to see us show up, where they didn't. We felt like we had the confidence to guide us in the moment, and it helped us understand our values and know when we could make a difference. So we launched a media campaign in 8 locations in the heart of 2020 in June of that year. And it amplified the voices of the Black community in how they were feeling in the moment. And we chose 8 locations. Many of them were specific to what was happening at the time. You'll recognize Minneapolis because of where George Floyd was killed, Louisville, Kentucky, where Breonna Taylor was lost as well, on the actual street. And we were really careful to make sure that we amplified the voices of the community because we knew that that mattered to us. And so again, cultural response strategy. Now, we were able to amplify all of these different words and again, show up for the communities that matter to us and take a moment and do this where we didn't have a lot of time. And this became a campaign that did win industry awards. I always say it's the campaign I wish I didn't have to do, but I am proud, right, that we were able to represent this group again in almost no time. So let's talk a little bit about what I learned from Sully and how we used it here. So when it came to those billboards, things happened, man. We did that pre-work. We talked to the communities. What are the things that matter? What kind of things do you go through? What should we be ready for? And we also knew to have a decision tree, right? When do we stand down? There was a lot of stuff happening in 2020. We didn't do a campaign for everything. And so it was important to us to understand. So for this activation, the theme that we had decided when we need to make a move and show up was societal shifts where conversations being driven on the platform, right? One band, one sound, several instruments. I didn't have an air traffic controller or stewardesses, but what we did have was a response plan wheel. So you can see here where we worked with media, policy, and service for this group. So in under 72 hours, we did this. We worked with the media team, as I mentioned before, Breonna Taylor, who was lost also to police brutality, the street where she lived. We wanted a message for her community. So working with the media team to be that targeted, right? Making sure that we did that, the right locations. We also had to make sure that we were understanding the political climate, any potential backlash to the company. That was with the policy team as well, and needing to understand those state-by-state laws. And then the service team protected every single person whose tweet was on a billboard around the world. We had the amazing Bernice King, daughter of Martin Luther King Jr., who had a huge billboard in Atlanta, which, you know, does also come with doxing and potential harm, so we had our service team ready. Now, we also worked with Brand Strat and Product, but we didn't need them for this one, right? So you can see, again, there was a wheel in how we responded. And then know thyself. Our core values that drove the work was a commitment to amplifying the voices, especially when they used the platform to talk about what mattered to them. So again, you can see this sort of opportunity to put this in action. So we all should and we can be this prepared even for the unknown. I could not have predicted 2020 in 2018 if you told me, but I felt confident that I was able to show up and respond to culture in a way that was meaningful. So take another look at this now, right? Now, how do we respond? Okay, now we understand that we might need counsel. We might need to talk to our media teams. We might need to have something that is a holistic cultural response strategy so that we can adapt our skills to how we actually respond and plan for the shifts of the world today. I always say, who is going to be the main character of the day? Nobody knows. Sometimes it's you made the choice. Sometimes the choice was made for you. But again, you got to be ready. We cannot sit here and be paralyzed anymore. I'm telling y'all right now, that's over. Before, in 2018, it felt like Twitter felt like one of the only companies in the world that would ever move that fast, that could have any of the things thrown at it that we did. Now it's all of us. So how are we going to show up, right? And one of the things that we've been working on that I'm so excited to announce, my amazing CEO, Tara, is here. She's probably so sick of me talking about this, is the Burrell Community-Centered Escalation Response Strategy. We're building that. We have to make sure that our client partners are prepared to make it in this world as it exists today. So having a proactive escalation response strategy, a cross-functional playbook, how does this actually work, right? So signal, horizon models, community insights and listening, nuanced social climate understanding, all of these things, right? We have to ensure that our brand partners are prepared to make smart, complex decisions in the world as it exists today. Because there's a lot of potential disruptive events. We talked about those themes, social uprisings, sweeping political changes, there's a lot of that going on, swift consumer affinity shifts, also intense community backlash, intense community support. Both of them need a response, right? All types of ways, and you can see from over here, all of these different headlines. This is the time that matters more than ever. Our consumers, people, what they are going through, what they're fighting for, how they're feeling, from joy to fear to trepidation. This is what we do. It's how we show up, and it's how we need to be guiding our partners, and it matters more than it ever has. And because if you don't have thrust, which Captain Sully lost all of that, you cannot fly a plane. But if a brand doesn't sustain trust, right, in the most complex moments, it can actually crash. And I'm not just saying that because this has real world results on top of being something that we all need to do. So, when you don't understand your consumer and things shift swiftly, consumers' sentiment shifts. And maybe your CEO is shifting this way. Then maybe you'll see a first ever drop in annual vehicle sales like Tesla did. Maybe you don't understand a consumer that supported you so much, that wasn't the agitator that was complaining, that feels betrayed, that's not going back in the store. Now you're going to see a decline. But maybe you know your value so well that you don't care if it's 2020 or 2025, you're doing the same thing. And that's Chick-fil-A, who's seen steady growth, who never changed, never swayed, and even when things were different, right? And so this is something that we need to understand because it helps us, it helps the bottom line, it helps us become better strategists. So again, the approach, it really allows us as professionals, I really do feel, and I've again lived it in real time, we can build that confidence. I will just say quickly, my CMO at Twitter, when I did that and led that project, she asked me and called me, she said, if you say no, we will not do this. And I had the confidence to do something innovative. We had never done anything like this, to be disruptive and creative. And I said, because we had done that pre-work, I know we can do this and we can do it right. So again, by being prepared, we're able to be better strategists. So last thing, going forward as strategists in today's world, it's our job to make sure we always have a plan, like Sully did, to land the plane safely as possible, no matter what may fly our way. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a practical day-to-day question. How do you approach strategy at the speed of light when you're getting pressure from clients and creative teams to make it fast and make it good?
Well, the thing about speed is that example I showed you was done in less than 72 hours. So again, part of the protocol and preparation is saying, what if there's a huge societal shift? Or what if there's something that happens that we need to respond to? If you know those core values, you've defined those values, some of your best innovation, some of your best creativity can happen quickly. It's about that pre-work of actually thinking about, you don't want to figure out that the engines can go down when you're in the plane. You want to think about that when you're in the hangar with the mechanics. Right? And so again, you can be innovative and you can be fast when you have done this pre-work, which is why I think it's so important for us to think this way, because I do think that when we don't have this, what we do get is being paralyzed and not doing anything, and that stifles creativity. Okay,
one last quick question. You can choose to answer this yes, no, or maybe. Should Cracker Barrel have changed their logo back to the original?
So we had a panel yesterday. We talked about brand values being unshakable. I'm going to add to that. Brand values must be unshakable no matter what they are. I'd rather you stand 10 toes down on whatever you feel you are. I don't want to see this back and forth anymore. We done that from 2020 to 2025. And honestly, it seemed to me as the core audience of that company was upset, right? Which is the opposite of when the core audience of Target was upset. So it seems to me that we're gonna have to get to a point where people are really, the consumer is making the choice about who they want to support and not support. And brands have to really understand, who is your core consumer? Was it a bunch of people squawking about it that's never gonna walk in a Cracker Barrel? I don't think so. And so I think that they made the choice that they felt they needed to make for who's walking in their restaurants.
Thank you so much.